I just want to preface this with the fact that I did not play Concord, nor the beta, or the full release. And considering the player numbers, most people didn't either. However, I did watch my fair share of content on the game from all sorts of sources, so hopefully you'll enjoy this deep dive regardless. It's important to understand the brass tacks about Concord. Sony never meant for this specific game to succeed. In fact, their general live service pitch was about 10 titles, with only a couple having staying power. Under Jim Ryan, PlayStation pivoted. Not every live service had to be a success. Just look at EA, Ubisoft, or Epic Games. You only need one or two big ones. It's what led Sony to put Naughty Dog on a live service title, Insomniac on a live service title. It's why Sony acquired Haven Studios and Firewalk Studios before either had released a single product. It's why they acquired Bungie for nearly $4 billion. Jim Ryan's plan was obvious. EA can try to make as many different games because FIFA, Madden, and Apex hold the revenue up. They can try to make a theoretical fourth pillar. Ubisoft is held afloat by Rainbow Six Siege. They can try to make a pirate live service game or some other stupid idea to have another pillar. Epic Games, who are so rich off Fortnite, had the luxury to expand into a metaverse with acquisitions to develop racing, music, and creative side modes. A studio close to Sony, in Square Enix, relies so heavily on Final Fantasy XIV for revenue to fund their games, and has tried to create their own other pillars with Babylon's Fall, Chocobo GP, and Marvel's Avengers. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if an Avengers game fails, or a Metaverse fails, or a pirate game fails, or a Dodgeball live service fails, because each company is still profitable off a single live service game. Sony isn't, hence Concord, hence Fair Games, hence Helldivers 2, hence Marathon, hence the ongoing Destiny 2 support, hence the cancelled Last of Us Faction spin-off, and hence Insomniac's cancelled live service Spider-Man game. Sony was held afloat by single-player video games, whose sales always capped off after a certain point. Jim Ryan had long been upset with this ceiling for Sony, and he tried to use the profits of the tentpole AAA games to try to create their own second pillar of live service titles. Once again, Concord was never meant to be that specific second pillar. It was one of potentially many games to be it, or a third or fourth pillar. Sony's brain drain of quality was represented in Concord, and that's why it's become so interesting. So without further ado, here's an autopsy of Concord. Though Concord didn't have to be a success, Sony obviously wanted it to be one. But it didn't have to be once again. Until the acquisition, it could have been a second-party title, but once Sony brought Concord in-house, the failure meant so much more. Suddenly, it was a PlayStation Studios release with transmedia potential, something Sony could have banked books, movies, and TV shows off of. Concord already has an episode in a TV show that comes out soon. Concord had been known about for a long time, but it took until the PlayStation Showcase on May 24, 2023 for the general gaming audience to get their first glimpse at the game. Even last year, something felt off about Concord. I've seen some YouTubers and people online say there was hype after the initial reveal, but that was never true. If you go back and watch the teaser, you aren't teased. It was a basic, boring, and bland first look at next to nothing. All you knew was there was a spaceship, pretty colors, and a beautiful burger. And something about playing as a free gunner. Mind you, this showcase where the basic teaser was revealed was the same presentation that had the basic teaser for Haven Studios' Fair Games, the trailer for Helldivers 2, a trailer for the PlayStation exclusive Foam Stars, the teaser for Bungie's Marathon, and a trailer for Destiny 2's The Final Shape. This also included Concord once again. That showcase was emblematic of one thing, Sony's shift. Concord just looked the worst, and always, from the beginning, had a stink to it because of it. Then some time went, and almost a year later, Concord had to carry an entire state of play. And the PlayStation environment was a lot different. Helldivers 2 was huge, but trouble had been brewing. Sony had next to no big first-party games announced, and the PlayStation 5 they announced was in the latter life cycle. With no big first-party franchise titles until 2025, there was a lot on Concord's plate, too much, that it never would have held up. Concord could have been a 10 out of 10, and there still would have been no hope for it. However, May 30th, 2024 was the day Concord truly died. It was the day where the cards had been stacked far too high. Sony chose to start the presentation with what was admittedly a pretty yet cinematic trailer, with characters who didn't seem terrible, though were entirely unoriginal and unfortunately bland. The story shown seemed at least interesting, if cliched, but as the runtime went on and on and on, for nearly 5 minutes, patience wore thin. Then a brief interview to introduce the game. Patience wore thin again. then gameplay, and the bubble finally burst. The characters were unappealing, to say the least. The game was a hero shooter, but a hero shooter 8 years too late. The gameplay looked slow, shooting looked boring, time to kill looked bad, the abilities didn't look fun, the voice lines were quips like Marvel humor, and once more, the characters weren't interesting to look at. They felt like the equivalent of Dollar General action figure knockoffs of the heroes from Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. The core tenets of a good shooter seemed missed, and yet, were these mainly issues because of the expectations of a modern PlayStation Studios release? Yes, and deservingly so. This was, after all, a title Sony funded and developed internally. Concord's true reveal trailer kept the stink from the year before, without shedding any of the odor or the public criticism. The initial teaser was bland yet colorful, and the full game looked bland yet colorful. The backlash never stopped, and everyone thought Sony would have to delay the game. Yet they pressed on, releasing a private beta for people who bought the game, then later a public beta for PlayStation Plus members. Okay, good, maybe this is where Sony gets some favorable news. Unfortunately, they didn't. All these issues people took from the trailers were cemented in the beta. Time to Kill wasn't good. The characters were ugly and boring. The humor sucked. Not only were the characters aping a movie from 10 years ago, but so was the humor. The genre was based on one that, too, had been popular 8 years ago. Concord never stood a chance. From the beta, 3 things were instantly apparent. The designs were bad, the game wasn't innovative in the hero shooter genre, and 3, it ended up becoming part of an internet culture war. The beta capped at 2,388 players on Steam, with the gimmick of gifting beta access to friends. No one knows how it did on PlayStation, but it probably performed similarly poorly. Then a news cycle hit Concord. The beta wrapped up, and the game was supposed to release in a month, yet Sony gave silence. Once again, people thought that it would be delayed. There was no feasible way Sony could address the criticisms of the beta in under a month. Well, you already know what happened next. Concord was released on August 23rd, 2023, to mixed reviews, with an all-time peak on PC of 660 players in total on Steam. Yet again, we've got no clue the physical sales on PlayStation or digitally, as well as numbers from Epic Games. But it doesn't matter, because the end result was still the same. When Concord came out, there were decent reviews even. A lot of people praised the gunplay, as expected of Destiny 2 alumni. Many praised the graphics, the maps, and even abilities, but nobody praised the most important aspect of a live service. Not the gameplay, but really the characters. Concord, like every hero shooter before and after, lives and dies based off of character designs. No one wants to buy skins for the bazooka lady in an astronaut outfit. Nobody cared about the big lady with makeup and a heavy machine gun. Frankly, the most appealing characters of Concord were the 3 from the first trailer, those being Hamar, Starchild, and Lennox. I also found Itzy, or Itzed, or ITZ, looked okay too, as well as the robot. But 3 to 4 characters in a roster being interesting while the remaining 12 aren't, that's not a good average. 1 in 3 or 1 in 4, it doesn't bode well for a live service. It feels unfair to boil Concord's failures on one aspect, but you kind of had to. Nobody wanted to play as these characters, no one, and that was why the game failed. Sony needed to pay attention to the industry. Not only was Concord 8 years too late to a trend, not only was it bloated in budget and development time, but they specifically missed the main appeal to hero shooters. Characters that you grow to love and spend lots of money on. The monetization of Concord may have been great after the $40 asking price, but it didn't matter. I played Overwatch 1 so much because I fell in love with the characters. I mained Zenyatta because he looked cool, then I fell in love with his kit and abilities. I mained Mercy because she looked unique, and then I fell in love with her kit and her abilities. I mained D.Va because I liked her design, and then I got hooked on her gameplay. It doesn't help that these characters were easy to understand. Of course the Angel would be the healer. The mech is the tank whose arms can shoot close-range shots. Of course the mech could block projectiles. Of course it can shoot missiles. Obviously the robot monk can attack with orbs. They're spinning around him after all. Overwatch had such a clarity to their designs. Still, in new heroes, that clarity remained. The only meshing of archetype and design in Concord was heavy characters being fat and a tank, etc., etc. Concord fundamentally misunderstood the hero shooter genre and failed because of it. You see, Concord was aimed at one market specifically, hero shooter fans who could break off of Overwatch. As somebody who stopped playing Overwatch in 2022 after being disillusioned by Overwatch 2's release and the switch to 5v5, this game was targeted towards players like me. Yet I never was interested. I own a PlayStation 5 and also a decent PC and sunk tons of hours into Overwatch 1, but like so many others, Concord failed to grab me. There's an assumption that hero shooters are a crowded market, a fact which isn't close to true. There's only one big hero shooter and only really one. Outside of Overwatch and Team Fortress 2, which itself are completely separate audiences, there's room to grow in the genre. Concord targeted the genre because it wasn't overcrowded. Sony could have had the third biggest game in the genre had Concord hit. And after the rocky launch, it was revealed Concord had only sold 25,000 units, at $40 a piece, with a budget of maybe $100 million, plus however much it cost Sony to acquire the studio and all the marketing behind the game too. Concord had completely failed to hit the target demographic, and not even 2 weeks after launch, Sony had announced Concord would shut down. The director said on the PlayStation blog, "While many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognized that other aspects of the game and our initial launch didn't land the way we intended. Therefore, at this time, we have decided to take the game offline beginning September 6th, 2022, and explore options including those that will better reach our players. Thus, the game shut down on September 6th, full refunds were delivered on all platforms, and PlayStation's biggest flop so far was complete." The future is unknown for Concord and Firewalk Studios. We all expect the game to come back next year as a free-to-play microtransaction-infused title, but you never know. Another possibility is Sony quietly never talks about the game again and it's swept under the rug by their management. Or Sony could take a tax break off the game's failure, akin to what Warner Bros. Did with multiple projects. Theoretically, Sony could also sell or spin off Firewalk Studios or rename the company to get rid of the Concord stink too. By the way, Amazon Prime's Secret Level TV show has an episode solely dedicated to Concord that releases in the future. That'll be a fun day, at least online. Anyways, I just wanted to say thanks as always. As usual, I'm late to a topic, but I wanted to bring at least somewhat of a level-headed analysis of a situation. If you want to support me, I upload videos pretty frequently now, so it'd mean the world to me if you could like, comment, subscribe like everyone else says, and seriously, have a great day.